Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode from the RPA Vanguard channel. My name is Andy Vannon. In this video series, we are going to be talking about the UiPath Automation Summarizer Solution Accelerator template. Let's get started. A few weeks ago, one of our audience members reached out to me and requested that I create a video series specifically on the Automation Summarizer Solution Accelerator template from the marketplace. And I thought that it was interesting for a few reasons. First, I haven't created any AI-related content when it comes to UiPath. That's largely because when we all started with this Gen AI discovery process, we were largely using OpenAI, and I really wasn't interested in just using one option. But then when AWS Bedrock came along, that opened up a lot of other possibilities to try Gen AI capabilities. And that plays very well into the automation summarizer template, because this summarizer template integrates into AWS Bedrock, which is great because as AWS Bedrock is a public-facing marketplace, many flagship AI providers host their models there. And based on your requirements and based on how a specific model performs, you have the option to basically implement your solution not just with one model, but also other LLMs, just in case another LLM performs better than the LLM that you have. So it basically gives you more options without being tied down to the models that are hosted in OpenAI, right? My thanks to the audience member who reached out, and I hope that this video series is going to help the larger audience. As usual is the case, you can go to the UiPath Marketplace to download this template. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to get this template, because on our sister channel, the Automation Rocket Ship, we have a complete series on UiPath Marketplace. And if this catches your interest, you can please go through this series to know more about how to use the marketplace and how to download any of the marketplace components. And the other thing is that recently I published an entire series on implementing a Solutions Accelerator template. And in this series on the RPA Vanguard channel, I have discussed in detail about how to dissect a Solution Accelerator template and learn some of the very important principles and thinking that lies behind Solutions Accelerator, right? So with that, I'm going to assume that you are going to download this template on a very convenient location on your desktop, and we will take it from there. All right, so once you have downloaded the Solution Accelerator template to a convenient location and unzipped it, you will see a folder that resembles what you see here on the screen. Basically, it is called Automation Summarizer along with the version. And then it will have a folder which is named Accelerator 7545 Automation Summarization Main. Please ignore the second one. This is something that I'm customizing. So this is not part of the download. This is something I copied, so you won't be seeing this, but you will be seeing the dash main folder, right? And this Solution Accelerator template basically has three main components. So if I get into the folder, the first and foremost is the deployment folder. And in it, there is going to be a solutions management zip file. And this is where we are going to start in the implementation journey, right? So this is the first item. The second would be the process itself. So going into processes, there is a performer process. And if you go into the performer folder, you will find the entire UiPath performer project. This is the one that does the entire work. And within the performer folder, if you go into data, That is the configuration file, right? These are the three main components, and we will be touching these components throughout the implementation journey. So before we begin our implementation journey, we just want to understand what this automation summarizer solution does. The automation summarizer gathers data, the log data from your orchestrator instance, your orchestrator tenant, and then prepares it in a certain manner, right? It prepares the data in a specific manner. And then what it does is it takes that data and attaches it as context to a prompt, right? And these prompts are of three different types, right? And they are different. There are three different types because the report that's going to be generated by the LLM can be sent to people that have different roles in the organization. Primarily, in the scope of this template, there are three major roles or personas, right? The first one is IT, the second one is business, and all the way at the top is the executive persona. And based on what kind of a persona that you are publishing or sending this report to, the prompts are going to be different, right? The preambles are going to be different, and we'll get to that later. But overall, what's going to happen is based on the persona you have set, it is going to take the specially prepared data, right? Your orchestrator tenant log data, and it is going to submit that along with that prompt to a large language model in AWS Bedrock. And what the LLM does is it analyzes the data and sends back the summarized report, right? The summarized statistics on all of the log data that you have sent to that LLM. And then what the performer process does is it takes those results, prepares a nice looking report that can then be sent to the personas for whom you have generated that report, right? For example, if you are setting the persona, the current active persona in the automation summarizer settings as IT, then a more detailed report would be prepared, and that report is going to go out to the members of the IT group. And as the report gets higher and higher up the chain, when it reaches the executive level, that executive level report is going to be, very high level, right? So based on the persona that you set, the report that you're going to get out of this summarizer solution is going to be different, right? And talking about the LLM, by default, out of the box, this summarizer is integrated with the Anthropic Cloud LLM, right? If you want to use a different LLM, then you'll have to customize this template to use that particular model. And most importantly, when you switch models, there is a high chance that you will have to also change your prompts for each of those personas, right? So therefore, before you proceed, make sure that you have access to Anthropic Cloud in AWS Bedrock. All right, now that we know where we have to start with this solution accelerator implementation, we go to our automation cloud instance and start at the tenant where we want to implement or deploy the performer process and also this solutions management package. Now I'm saying this because you will see further down the line that I have deployed this solutions management package to one orchestrator tenant, but my data or the data on which I'm summarizing comes from a different orchestrator tenant, right? So they don't have to be the same tenant, right? You can have your automation summarizer process running on one service tenant, and then you can implement your process to go pick up data from different tenants in your enterprise, right? So that you don't have to deploy the automation summarizer individually on all of these, on orchestrator tenants. Now, again, that depends on the security and compliance policies that are currently prevailing in your enterprise. It is possible that you cannot go across tenants, and therefore you might have to deploy these solution accelerated template to each of these tenants, right? But for the convenience of this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy the summarizer here on this tenant named Titan Robot 1019, but then I'll be going across to fetch data from a completely different tenant, right? So to begin with, we start by going into the automation ops feature of the automation cloud, and then solutions management. And here you go into packages, and you will start by you clicking on this upload solution package button, right? And when you do so, you will be prompted to drop the solutions management package here. And that is where you pick up this package that you see in the folder here that we talked about earlier, and then you drop it and then you upload, right? So provided that this package does not exist, it will be uploaded. But if the package already exists and the version of the package that you're trying to upload already matches the version that's already existing here, then your upload will be rejected, right? So I'm not going to upload this again because, as I said, I already have the summarizer package version 1.0.0 already available here. And therefore, I'm going to use this package in the next step. So once you have your package uploaded, the next step would be for you to start with the ellipsis here and go to deploy package. Now, before I begin or go any further, I just wanted to let you know that if you open the documentation folder of this solutions accelerator template and you read through the documentation, right, you might see that the steps followed there are different from what I'm showing you. The reason for that is that documentation did not work for me, and I followed this process and it worked. So I leave it up to the audience to look at the documentation and then compare it with this process here and then adopt whatever works for you, right? But what I'm showing you here is not what is in the documentation. I might have taken bits and pieces of it from the documentation, but the steps that I'm following are necessarily not what's in the documentation, right? I just wanted to make that clear. So first, when you want to start deploying, you see that now the package name you selected is Automation Summarizer version 1.0.0, and the destination tenant is your current tenant. Now the deployment name is going to default to the name of the package. So what you do is the recommended approach is to give your deployment name make it something unique and purposeful. So in this case, I'm going to say demo, right? Because I'm demonstrating this to you folks. And then do not choose a destination folder. If you have a folder under which you want to create this deployment, then you do choose it. But if you want to create this as a folder under the root in your tenant, then you select this option, right? Now here again, you can you see that it has resolved this name for you, but I'm going to give it a specific name, right? Automation Summarizer Demo, and I hit continue. And as soon as you're done with that, you are brought to this page here, right? So this page here requires a lot of preparation activities before you can proceed further and validate your deployment, right? Because if I now click validate, it is going to fail. You see there are validation errors here. That is because you might have uploaded the deployment package, the solutions management package, but the solution management entries are still not complete, right? And if you scroll up, you will see that some of the things that this particular solutions management package requires are not yet complete, right? And therefore, the next step for us is to do some groundwork, come back here, and fill in all the missing details that have been indicated by these errors before we can hit validate again and then deploy our solutions management package. We'll take a look at that next. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you do not want to lose the work that you've done. So please save your deployment with the errors using the save as draft feature, right? So when you click save as draft, these settings will be saved. You can come back later and update these settings, right? So when you do that, you will see that you're taken back to the deployments tab, and under the deployments tab, the last operation that you tried to do here was automation summarizer demo. You tried to install it, but you saved this as draft, right? That means you cannot deploy this until it is completely validated and free of all the errors. Okay, so what do we need to complete this package in all respects? For that, again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on Resume Deployment Wizard because I need to know what are the details that I require. So when I hit validate, it gave me two errors, right? It is complaining that there is an Office 365 application credentials that is required to complete this deployment. Now, that is because this particular solutions accelerator template is out of the box, works with Microsoft Azure Cloud. And therefore, you will need the Azure credentials to complete this. Now, I'm not going to be using Microsoft Azure Cloud. I'm going to be using the conventional Google integration service that I'm going to set up, or you will see that I've set up in this tenant. So I'm not going to be using that, but there is a way to actually cancel this error. We'll look at that later. The other thing that which is important and which you require, you cannot dispense with, is the automation summarizer orchestrator app credentials, right? Now you will need these credentials to connect to the orchestrator instance to fetch your data over APIs, right? So for that, what we do is we go in here and identify the entries that we need to fill up. So here it complained about the automation summarizer orchestrator app credentials, right? So here is the app credentials, and then there are a couple of other things that are related to it. It's called orchestrator account name and orchestrator cloud tenant name, right? So let us now save this as draft and then go back and get those entries, come back here and fill those in, right? All right. So to get at the orchestrator app credentials, I go to admin and I click on the tenant and then go to services. And then I click on API access keys. Now, this is not going to work for me. The reason is because at the beginning of the deployment, I had said that this tenant is going to be used for deployment, but the data that I'm going to fetch is from another orchestrator instance, right? And so I'm going to go into that orchestrator instance over my VNC. So I have a machine on my network, and this is the orchestrator instance. And as you can see, its tenant name is Skywalker, and the automation cloud instance is Titan Robot 2022, right? So if I come in here and do the same thing, meaning go to admin, come to services, come to orchestrator, and then I do API access. When I click on this API access, you are going to be seeing this screen here, and it is going to have your user key, your organization ID, the name, and the client ID. It's important to know what goes where because sometimes it can be confusing. Your client ID is going to be the credential username. Your user key is going to be the credential password, right? That's important. So once you get these two right, the other two are pretty easy. The name is going to be your tenant name. Your organization ID is going to be the account name, right? So you can see where these will actually be filled in. So now that I know what I need, I come back to my deployment tenant, and then I go back to my automation ops. And again, go back to my deployment and click resume. You come down here, you go into Orchestrator App Credentials, and then here, the username is replace with your Orchestrator tenant client ID, right? And here, enter your Orchestrator tenant user key. Okay, now I'm not doing this on screen because I don't want to share my API credentials here. I will do that offline and we can pick this up in the next section. But you can see that I have filled in a couple of details here. And then next I go to the Orchestrator account name. And of course, the account name is easy. It's called Titan Robot 2022. Remember, this is the Orchestrator instance account name for the remote tenant from where I'm going to be fetching the data, right? So I just want to be clear on that once again. So you can see that it's Titan Robot 2022 and the tenant is Skywalker. So I fill this up. The next thing that I have to do here is put in, right? So once I have filled this data in, let us see whether it has made some difference, right? And what I do is I click validate again. Now the first error has disappeared. Remember, I just filled in some fake values here because I don't want to expose my keys. But when you are going to be doing it, you're going to fill in the valid keys. And once you did that with your credentials, your tenant name and your account name, that error must go away, right? Now what is left is your Office 365 application credentials. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be using Azure credentials, right? I'm going to be using the conventional Google integration service account from my automation cloud. And therefore, I have to neutralize this error, right? Either you have to delete this or you have to neutralize this. So how do we do that? We go in and we look for this entry, Office 365 application credentials. Here it is, Office 365 application credentials. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say not used. Now I have to fill something in, right? I might as well fill something that documents this process, right? Because it's not going to allow you to deploy if these two entries are not valid. So I'm going to just take this and put this in as my password as well. Then I'm going to go to my application tenant because with Azure, you need the application tenant as well. So I go to application tenant and here again, I'm going to fill in that detail. So that means that if someone is going to come back to this package and going to go through the settings, it will be very clear in the documentation, in the deployment itself, that I'm not going to be using, or this deployment has not used the Office 365 tenant. Instead, it's going to be using the conventional integration service connection from the automation cloud, right? So now, once I've filled in that detail, I'm going to click validate again. This is great, right? We have no validation errors.